Hello again, my friends, and you are my friends, and welcome to your Monday night Talking Town Extra Time, the show that puts the extra time in on our football club. And it's all rosy in the garden of Ipswich Town. Well, on the pitch, off the pitch, Q meltdowns all day today. Certain websites crashing more than the pound did after a certain budget recently. But it was certainly down today at Portman Road on the e-commerce side of things. I'm sure we'll pick up on that throughout the course of the evening, but also we're here to pick up on the good side of life, the great side of life, the side of life that makes you sing on a Sunday morning. No, Vicky, it's not that. And makes you really happy. It's not the Jaeger bombs that you realise you left by the bed. It is, of course, our football team sitting second in the league table. All rosy, 2-1 victory over Morecambe. And just genuinely loving life at the right end of League One. So we're going to invite you to have your say, as always. Live chat, live link to get involved. Got two new voices on the platform. Mike and Rich had their turn yesterday, and fine comments and opinions they were. But two new voices stepping up to the plate to see what they've got to say about their football team. But before we go any further, don't forget you can become a Talking Town fifth stander. Hit the YouTube join button or go to Ko-Fi, hit the link, become a Talking Town fifth stander, pledge a monthly amount on there. Also, if you can't do that, if you won't do that, whatever the case may be, hit the like button. It costs you nothing. It helps the platform. Hell, even if you just hit the dislike button, it still helps. It still counts as a interaction, YouTube would call it. Either way, get involved. I have gone to Discord, which is a perk of our Talking Town fifth stand community, for our first foray into this evening, as of course our prediction league. This is the top places currently in our weekly Talking Town prediction league. Lee Anderson leads the way on 47, followed by Mike D. Mike D was in the Discord today, in fact, asking for a steward's inquiry over Morton Panthers result. We saw you, Mike, throwing toys. It's like, I'm sure race. No. Standout runs a tight ship. Ben King in third, James Warren Elmer in fourth, and then we've got Fuchs, Steele, and Bam Bam picking up the last remaining places. You won't find me on that list. I'm not very good. I mean, I've got a bit of a wet patch on my t-shirt. I can't even get water into my mouth this evening. So asking me to predict fixtures and the right results just seems a little bit of a stretch for me and my limited capacity. But yes, just in case we do at some point, as it has done now, comes into shot, that is water. I didn't have time for a glass, so I just thought I'd chuck it in the general direction of my face. Apparently, wet on blue isn't very good. Whoever knew? Not me. Right, joining me tonight, first and foremost, is this man, Lewis Rapstar Robertson.
That'll be with part.
Lewis, how are you, my man?
Yeah, good. How you doing?
Other than the water spillage. Other than the water spillage, I'm very well. Very busy. Been swimming today, so it's just a water-filled day here at the Towers. Have you taken your little one swimming yet? Have you embraced that Antarctic level of expedition?
Yeah, we took her when she was quite young, and I think she was about 6 months old. So I think it was more for us and getting photos for friends and family rather than sort of any benefit. But she goes quite regularly. She's got into it. So yeah, all good. And I think I may have said before, it's quite a good trade-off in terms of I take her swimming when there's quite a few Ipswich games on the horizon, and it gets me in the good books.
It certainly does get you in the good books. Always good to have that trade-off. You're learning, and people could obviously, embark. I know there's a number of people in the live chat who are just getting engaged or on the verge of getting married. They could learn from this man here. Look, he is living our dreams.
I don't know about that.
Well, the trade-offs is what it's all about, though. But yes, swimming is certainly an interesting one. Just as interesting as two games in one, two penalties in one game. Both for Ipswich Town. How rare, how wild. Talk us through. Morecambe 1, Ipswich Town 2.
I hadn't considered the penalty stat until the show. I think you guys were discussing it week, 10 days ago. And then, I was really aware of it for the Cambridge game that we hadn't had a penalty for so long. And then, lo and behold, get 2 in a game, and possibly could have had one before in the first half, was it? I'm trying to think now. It's God, for what, 48 hours ago? It seems like a lifetime ago, but such is life. But I mean, sod's law, we get a penalty, first one in ages, and then unfortunately miss it or the keeper saves it. But pretty emphatic penalty from the ITFC PLO, and got us the win.
Yes, the pace of the ball took it past the goalkeeper in the end. After Connor Chaplin's, tepid effort would probably be.
It's one of those ones. If the keeper dives the opposite way and it just rolls in, it looks like he's done him with the eyes, and it's a good penalty. But when the keeper goes the right way and saves it, then it looks like a really poor effort. But it's one of those. And Rich correctly predicted, I think, that Chaplin would be our penalty taker when asked in last week's show, and it looks like Evans will probably stay on penalty duties until we get our next one in 18 months' time.
It might well be another, a long time, shall we say, before we get another penalty. Sadly so. I mean, as you've mentioned, though, a good couple of times, we could have had a penalty at any number of points over the last, several weeks, to be fair. But it's just off the back of last Saturday, where I said it's rare to have 2 penalties in one game. We again have 2 penalties in the one game.
Absolutely, but. No, all joking aside, I think the way we're set up to play, particularly as teams start to tire, I can see us getting more penalties as the season goes on. And I'm sure Richard Chandler will be pleased to hear that, Lee Evans, who maybe wasn't talked about as one of the 10-goal ITFC players, if he's on pens for the rest of the season, I could see him getting at least 4 or 5, particularly if he takes them as emphatically as the one the other day. And there you go. That's another player pushing towards that magical 10-goal mark for the season.
He needs 7, though.
Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself a bit, but I do think with the pace we've got in the team as well, we should be getting more penalties, and we'll see how things play out in the coming weeks.
To be fair, Richard Chandler does need 7 players to get.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to get a hell of a lot of penalties and then on to the next one. I think surely he'd be shouting for Luke Wolfenden to be on penalty, so he can get himself off the mark and get up to that 10.
Oh, well, Fridge has helped him out off the mark as a centre-half. Harry Joseph, good result Saturday, would have been even better if I hadn't just waited an hour in the online queue. We'll come to that in just a second, Harry. Do not worry. I'm sure No Filter Yorkshire V has got some magical words of wisdom that she can give us all for what she feels the website may have been. Mark Dowling hit the post twice, also 3 times hit the post. The woodwork certainly got hit 3 times. So could have easily finished it off earlier, realistically, instead of leaving it late. Owen Evans has impressed me so much this season. Surely he should be in the Welsh camp over a Johnny. Don't start me again. Over a Johnny Williams and the likes. A feature I do want to bring on a Monday is internet funnies. If you find something on the internet from Monday to Monday that is funny, gets you laughing, whatever it may be, do send it in to the social media accounts or email homedressingroom89@gmail.com. I will start us off this evening with our first funny. Rich Lewis, if that's okay with you. It's from our friends at the Second Tier podcast. I came across it on social media either this morning early or yesterday. At some point I've come across it anyway, but it's this one here. It's involving, I've never heard an accent before, which is Scottish, New York, Spanish, and Italian in it. And I just thought, obviously, our ex-manager. Can you guess which manager I thought of, first of all, before I play the clip?
Paul Cook.
Paul Cook, absolutely, because obviously his voice was all over the show. And having listened to the clip, it is quite funny. So we have Scottish, New York, Spanish, Italian, and German in it. Well, apparently, can you pick them out? I'm stalling for time because I'm trying to get it loaded. I had the Discord
when you were saying about manager, I instantly thought of Steve McLaren and then had to quickly remind myself that he's never been Ipswich manager. But did you ever see when he started trying to speak Dutch? And I think it was Joey Barton when he played at Marseille was trying to speak with a a French accent as
Oh,
well.
mate, Steve McLaren's Dutch accent is a thing to behold. But here we go. Finally, I have it locked and loaded. Let me know if you can't hear this.
Guys, if you're not training with intensity and you do 3 days out of the 5 days, you'll not be in my team. I've got a good group here. And the team, the starting 11 and the subs, they earned the right. If you want to coast, just stay at home. You're not going to play for me. It's not how it works.
There we go. Did you hear all of the accents described, Lewis?
It was kind of obviously he's that's the new Huddersfield manager, isn't it? And he's Scottish and he has been working in Germany, but it was basically a Scottish person trying to do different countries' accents, wasn't it? There was kind of Scottish in there throughout, but towards the end of that went in a completely different direction.
It really did. It was a Scotsman with obviously a sore throat. Needs a couple of lozenges. But yeah, could you pick out the New York, the Spanish, Italian, and German? Our friends at the Second Tier podcast with that one. Let me know your internet funnies, or it's Monday. It's the start of a week. Ugh. Let's have a bit of a laugh to kick off a Monday night show. Get me the internet funnies. And while you think about what you've seen this week, let's of course welcome in our third member. No Filter, Yorkshire v. Vicky Henderson.
With hindsight, I wish I'd joined you in the Jaeger bombs because that match was shit. Evening.
See, as I said at the start of the show, Jaeger bombs. She loves a good Jaeger as well, Vicky. Welcome. How are you? I'm
really good. Still got a little bit of a throat. It's getting better, slowly. But yeah, all right.
Any accents do you think you might throw in there through the course of the next 60 minutes to compete with what you've just seen there?
How can you compete with that? That was brilliant.
I mean, there you go. I just find that Steve McLaren clip because that is a notorious funny. You say, I'm glad joining the Jaeger bombs because that match was shit. We've not had a lot of those recently, Vic.
No, we haven't, have we? I did worry slightly on Saturday, just for a little bit when we went 1-0 down and Wednesday was winning and Plymouth were winning. And I thought, it's just not going to be our day. But all credit to them, they fought back, didn't they? And like I said, some of these games, they're easy on paper. They really are, but they're the ones that you have to dig deep and fight for.
Yes, your tweet got a lot of traction on Saturday night. A great tweet in itself. Before we go into the football, Daniel Barnard is buzzing because he got his black shirt from the town shop today. Vicky, in only the way you can, talk to me about this website that kept crashing today. Down more times than Wilfred Zaha at Selhurst Park in town under Mick McCarthy.
Well, I've only been on Twitter a couple of times today, so I've only seen a snippet. But yeah, it's looking like it's a bit of a shambolic thing, isn't it? On the other hand, it shows that the demand is there, and that's equally as good, isn't it?
Lewis?
I'm trying to put a good spin on it.
I can see that.
It has shades of a couple of years ago and kind of a completely different regime. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to use this as a stick to beat the club with or anything like that, because there's plenty of positive things. It's just, I have a bit of an issue in how late they announced the third kit. As nice as it is, it's then not available for people. And I think, was it Hawks earlier tweeted to say that people have started to place their orders now and he's not even received his from the first batch that went out and things like that. I mean, I know that a football shirt can be worn anytime and you can wear it past the end of the season. But in terms of it being an active ITFC shirt, by the time some people start being able to order again, get their shirt, you're only going to have about a 6-month window where it's possibly going to be worn, probably less than that. So, yeah, it's just a bit disappointing, really. And I think there's been so much good work going on behind the scenes at the club. I don't know. I just think they need to look at the shop and the online side of the shop and sales. And I know that people are getting frustrated. I know that some people gave up. I know a number of the regular Talking Town listeners, people like Matt Stannard, Rich, they were all trying to get through to varying degrees of success. And as well as they've done in sales and demand, they've probably missed out in some cases. And as Christmas starts to approach, people may look elsewhere for gifts for the children and whatever else because they can't guarantee they're going to get the shirt in time. I don't know. The club may put something out, but that they said that they'd sold out of adult sizes bar small men's, I think. But there was no acknowledgement of the technical issues that have stopped people from purchasing. It must have been so frustrating for so many. But as Vicky said, there is a demand now, and the club need to meet those demands.
Absolutely. Well, if you do want an e-commerce website that doesn't run around, hurt you, leave you, and well, I can't say can cope with the demand because I don't think we've ever had any demand.
Perfect segue.
But of course, the Talking Town store, shop.talkingtown.co.uk. You can grab the finest merchandise known to this podcast, and you can grab the finest designs known to this podcast, and support the podcast all in the same. Get some decent Christmas presents, as Lewis was just saying there. But yes, your merchandise needs fulfilled. Don't go to where you've been going today. Go to shop.talkingtown.co.uk. You won't get a black shirt on there, though. I know we haven't got licensed products. We ain't at that level just yet, but we're getting there. But jokes aside, Vicky, it's 2022. E-commerce platforms aren't today technology. They're yesterday, in all honesty, from a novice point of view. This ain't really that difficult, is it, to get a working, functioning... I don't care what the demand is. Like, put me in a queue by all means, but some people were getting kicked out. We're getting, it was a nightmare.
And I get that, but it's no different to some of the bigger clubs. As bad as it sounds, and don't judge me, I had to buy a Leeds shirt. It really pains me to say that. I'm sorry, but it was no different on their website. As soon as the shirts were put available, they were sold out. So I know it's frustrating. I didn't get one. I've wanted a black one as well. But on the other hand, our club is selling out of shirts faster than demand can dictate. And I think that's a really good thing, because we're, at the end of the day, we are a League One club, and yet we're selling just as much as Leeds United. How fab is that?
Lee said the bit they didn't think there would be this demand. I don't know. If the moment you get Ed Sheeran involved in anything, Lewis, you're kind of hoping there's a demand, right? Like it's like me having a collab with Alex Griffin. You kind of hope some of his 40,000 subscribers migrate across to you.
Definitely. I think we talked about it at the time last year when Ed Sheeran became involved. There's going to be people who aren't necessarily Ipswich Town fans, but are Ed Sheeran fans all over the world. They're buying the shirt because it looks good and it's got Ed Sheeran or Ed Sheeran's tour emblazed across the front. So the Ipswich Town badge and the running towards adversity that's printed on it probably doesn't mean that much to some people, but it's really, really positive, and there is so much good that is going on. And look, I have full faith that those responsible will address it. But I think it's probably just come too late for this. And there's clearly been some issues. I would hope by next year, when the new kits are released, they're on top of it and there's a whole new look website and it's more efficient. I think Nick Muller said that they're already starting to go on other online platforms, which, the club are missing a trick, aren't they? Because potentially then they're missing out on a cut and certain things. People are going to buy off there rather than going through the doors or logging in. But, it's a situation that's been created, unfortunately. I'd be really interested on the subject of Ed Sheeran tonight as well, to see if anyone was in Ipswich Town Centre the other day and happened to stumble across him.
Yes. I was gutted about that. I mean, I live in Yorkshire. That's no good, is it?
No, just in general.
Hey.
You set him up, I'll tap him in.
How fab would that have been? Just popping out for your lunch hour and there he is.
Is it lunch in Yorkshire or is it dinner?
Breakfast, lunch and dinner.
I'm not
going to start that debate.
I thought it was breakfast, dinner and then tea, isn't it?
Yeah, that's see? Perhaps it's just us Southerners there, Lewis.
We're a bit posher down here, though.
Oh, okay.
Or up here. However it is.
Well, which way we look at it. If you're in Scotland, you're down. Nick Muller, they are selling on eBay for £80 starting bid. Graham Chappell online shop says XL is in stock. Just ordered one unless it's a pre-order. Doesn't say that though. Daniel Barnard's heard the Ed Sheeran card going for 100 on eBay. Stephen Perry, depends on the infrastructure too. I'm sure that ain't been upgraded much. Saj was in the queue all day to no avail. Mike D, have you got TT dressing gowns yet, Gov, in honour of Colin? I haven't, but literally, I've just written it down. It's making the list. Get your Christmas shopping with us. Your Colin Plum Talking Town dressing gown.
I've got another, on that note, I've got another non-ITFC related thing to throw out.
Go on.
Has anyone watched the new series of fantasy football? I
haven't.
was really apprehensive about it, but I've actually found, I mean, it's only half an hour, but I mean, some of the footage they've managed to get was, you know, new footage that I haven't seen, which I think they've already talked about. It's far more difficult to get footage that hasn't been plastered all online that's funny compared to when the show first ran in the 90s. And yeah, like I say, I went in with no expectation whatsoever. And I think they've had 2 episodes now, and it's been okay. What reminded me of that was the talk of dressing gowns, and then I instantly thought of Stato from fantasy football. So sorry, kind of gone off at a bit of a tangent, but yeah, I found the show all right. I'd recommend it to others maybe for half an hour if Talking Town isn't on a Thursday night.
We're not on a Thursday night. Only one show tends to normally be on Talking Town platform. That's the Away Day Guide. But yeah, no, I heard them both on the Radio 5 Live, I think it was last week. And I thought, I might give that a go because Thursday nights I'm not tend to generally be sat talking about Ipswich Town, but I haven't yet. But it is on my watch list. I'm 2 episodes behind now on Hot D, House of Dragon, Lewis. So
I have not watched that.
I've lost momentum. Yeah, I haven't watched the last
I'm not overly interested, to be fair. It's a struggle. I've read the book, but I'm struggling. Are you a Game of Thrones fan, Vicky?
A what fan?
Game of Thrones fan.
No, never
well, then
watched
House
it.
of Dragon probably might not be up your street then, to be fair. But
I've just finished watching Jeffrey Dahmer. That was good.
The Netflix on the documentary on Netflix. Yeah,
very grisly and horrific, but in a weird way, very interesting.
I just thought Jeffrey Dahmer was a lyric in a song by, I think it's Katy Perry, but it might not be Katy Perry. Yeah, she'll eat your heart out like Jeffrey Dahmer, and I just thought it was just a lyric. But now I actually know what Jeffrey Dahmer is. But there we go. Moving on. Ed Sheeran would have worn his black shirt while singing in the town last week. Craig at Portsmouth. Generally think the black kit should have been our second kit at the start. That's it. All this demand for a third kit. Cost of living crisis. What cost of living crisis? Third kits. Get them in the trolleys.
Apparently, Rich informed me that the club have indicated that it will be used in a game very soon. So,
there's just
get at least one outing, the black kit.
I like it better than the red and black, to be honest.
I like any kit we're in that we win. To be honest.
Well, that too.
Literally, I was thinking. Actually, it's funny. I was thinking at the Cambridge game last Tuesday, and we'll bring it on to Morecambe with this. This kit is all right, but do you know what's better? The players that are in this kit, and that's what makes this kit really good. Because I'm looking at players out there that I really enjoy watching, are brilliant, exciting, fast, got flair, and it's the kit. Of course, when you're out in the town centre, you want to be looking good, but really, again, it's the kit that you win in is the kit that you look good in, because when you're in the town centre, Lewis, and you see a town shirt, if the town are doing rubbish, you'll go, sorry, excuse me, there's a town shirt, hey. Whereas, hey, he's wearing a town shirt, that fella. They're doing all right, aren't they?
And the great thing is, you're starting to see more and more kids wearing Ipswich shirts, particularly around this way. Yes, you're always going to get your Man City, Man United, Liverpool kits, but nice to see more and more Ipswich, and long may it continue. And obviously, success on the pitch will play a massive part in that. And the other positive thing recently has been the massive attendances we've been getting. Huge. And that's without pack-out PR last Tuesday night. That wasn't included. So, it's a really good positive buzz. And I think the last 3 games that we've had, all wins in the last, 10 days, have been a really, really good springboard now to take us forward. A few people had a bit of a wobble after the Plymouth game. Personally, I've got full faith in this team. I don't see us creaking or being found out in the way that we were when we were top in the first season in League One under Paul Lambert. I think we've got more flexibility. And I think the 3 different challenges we've had in the last 3 games that we've come through on each occasion should give people optimism rather than necessarily looking to pick fault in, you know, how we start a game or if we concede a goal or even if we lose another game. You know, we are going to lose games, and everyone comes on here or on social media and says, oh yeah, I know we're going to lose games this season and, you know, that's to be expected. Well, we need to be measured within that as well and understand that, yeah, we're not going to have it all our own way. We didn't have it all our own way on Saturday, but we regrouped and we found a way of overcoming it. And Saturday's game, if we get to where we want to be come May, we're not going to all look back and go, our highlight of the season was that Morecambe 2-1 victory. But I tell you what, that's a massive 3 points in the step in the right direction in terms of the way we showed character to come back. And I don't think we should lose sight of that. And the beauty or the great thing about the Cambridge game last week was the fact that 65 minutes, 70 minutes, we as fans remained patient and behind the team. There were no moans, there were no getting on at people. And we have to continue with that belief that we are going to win games of football, even if we don't necessarily start well, because we've got that quality now.
Absolutely, well said. And Vicky, I know you want to say, you want to touch on this as well. Because, you know, we're winning games, we're coming back in games. It's very different this year for a number of reasons. What are your thoughts following on there from Lewis's wonderful comments?
I agree with Lewis completely. It just feels different. We're not giving up. Last year, I don't know. I mean, we had a horrific start, didn't we? And we touched on it that at this point, I think we had something like 5 points or something like that. Certainly not anywhere near what we've got now. And we go out there and we look the part and we play, and we've got this belief within the team. And they don't give up. And I don't know whether it's that group huddle at the beginning, which really, you know, spurs them on. But whatever it is, it's working. The only thing I would say is that when they're playing teams like Morecambe, who will make it difficult, you know, they park the bus, they'll make it difficult. We shouldn't be looking at playing the pretty football that we're doing in front of our goal. The passes, because that just drives me mad. They're not a pretty team, as in Morecambe wasn't a pretty team. And that style of play just doesn't suit where we're going. It might suit like Sheffield Wednesday and Portsmouth, that type, who come to us and want to play, but not the Morecambes that want to park the bus.
I think you make a really good point in so much as some of the away games we play, the pitches aren't necessarily conducive to trying to play that way. And that's only going to get more difficult, isn't it? Obviously, as the weather starts to turn, pitches are going to start to cut up. However, to kind of balance that, what I'd say is we had, I think, 70% possession first half. On Saturday, I don't know what the overall total was. But if we're passing the ball across the back, if we're keeping hold of the ball, when Morecambe haven't got the ball, even if they're not necessarily running and chasing down and chasing after the ball, they're constantly having to be switched on. You know, where's the player I'm meant to be marking? What position should I be in? What as a team is the game looking like? And it's a bit like jelly, isn't it? It's kind of ever moving parts evolving. As the ball goes to Damasian on the right, Morecambe have to move over. As it goes over to Davis on the left, Morecambe have to move over. And I think what that can do is mentally start to grind teams down. And we created, as Fisherman rightly pointed out on yesterday's show, we don't have a shot on target for 41 minutes. We didn't create much in the first half. However, we came out second half and Morecambe couldn't live with us. And I think it's almost doing that preparation by keeping the ball, making Morecambe work. Not only is it tiring physically, but also mentally. And that's possibly contributed to them giving away two, from their point of view, easily avoided penalties. Just people being that second too late in their challenge. It's easy to miss the fact, and I'm not saying I'm absolutely right, but I'm just speculating that some of that could have been because of the fact we had so much of the ball and mentally they were quite drained. But I think you can play two ways. I think what we are able to do now is play as the game dictates. So when we need to keep the ball, we keep the ball. When we need to play at pace, we can play at pace. And they're all different strings to the bow that we haven't always necessarily had, as you rightly said, Vicky. So, there's different ways of looking at it, but I do think we are grinding teams down, which is why we need to keep patient at times.
Absolutely. I do get both your points there. And I suppose because a lot of conversation has been Morecambe pressing us the way Plymouth pressed us and how we're really struggling to find at times an answer for that press. I guess an answer for the press is a little bit of what you're both suggesting, and one of which is obviously when you can go longer, and a long ball doesn't mean you've gone route one lump it just means you've gone with a longer pass. When you prove to a team you can hurt them that way and hurt them on the ground playing out from your back, you're adding another string to your bow. You're making it, because it's almost, pick your poison. Do you want to get poisoned by us on the ground from the back and you try and sit in, or do you want to try and press us high and we'll just then go longer? So it is about always continue. And I think, even the club would say adding strings to the bow, adding different ways of hurting a team. And until the slice of luck against Cambridge, who knows what way that would have gone, but that slice of luck came, and they say you make your own luck in this world. Lots of fantastic comments coming in. Mike D heard town fans saying we should go for Wickham in January. Not for me. Lots of comments about how we need to sort of strengthen the front areas in January. Paul P, if we have the ball, whatever we are doing with it, the opposition can't hurt us. Very much the Lambert mentality. That I'm not against that. That's not me saying you're wrong. That's me saying you're right, by the way. Alan Armstrong, manager of the month from our Darlington fan. Big up Alan Armstrong. Lee Bayliss, it would take Stockton too long to get up to speed with us. I don't see him coming at all. Would be very surprised if he did. How did you rate his game quickly, Lewis, on Saturday, Stockton?
I think he saw, same as with Morecambe, he saw more of the ball in the first half. I think we struggled at times, and look, I'm a big advocate of Richard Keogh, and I thought he had a really good game, but it did take him a little bit of time to get up to speed, didn't it? And I think Keogh came in partly to deal with Stockton's physical presence, but I don't think Stockton's been playing that much recently. He's been on the bench, and if we'd signed Stockton in the summer, I would have absolutely got behind him. But I think we've moved on now, and I almost feel like Hadmi is our kind of League One player we're looking to develop. I think if we were to go for another striker, it would need to be someone with a view to they can do it in the Championship. And I agree with Mike D. I don't think Connor Wickham, although I'm really pleased to see him back and playing football and scoring goals, I'm really pleased for him. I don't think necessarily he'd be the answer either. But yes, Stockton was okay on Saturday. But, again, Morecambe worked really, really hard. He was a part of that, leading from the front line, closing down and pressing. And second half, they weren't able to keep that level of press up, and we were able to get opportunities. So, yeah, I think he was okay. He was no worse than any other Morecambe player, but we rode the storm and came through strong second half.
Absolutely. It's been a great start at Ipswich Town. Now, I asked on the Twitter account, we've got two people waiting to come in shortly. We'll bring them both in one by one and ask them the same question. But I asked on the Twitter account this morning, this is a fantastic team, but who's not getting enough love in this ITFC side? So we'd like to know just who isn't getting enough love or enough coverage from this rather wonderful ITFC side. So we got a number of comments on that tweet, which are going to be on the screen just now. While Vicky, you tell us who, in your opinion, isn't getting enough love, enough coverage in this lineup right now.
I'd say Donasian for me. Is a workhorse, isn't he? For, every week he doesn't steal the limelight, but he's there, he's working, he's passing, he's getting up there, and he doesn't really do that much wrong. So for me, it's Donasian.
JD, JD was mentioned there by Aaron Scott. JD becomes so dependable that you forget how good his performances are each week. What a remarkable story he is. Truly remarkable. In the summer of would you keep them or not? I think he was along with Caden Jackson, one of the sure favourites to not be here. So great shout, Vicky. Lewis, how about yourself?
I think it's a really good question, and I read quite a few of the comments in the tweet, and every time I thought of someone slightly different, someone will come up with the person that I'd thought of. I just want to give a shout out very quickly to, I think Ben Moore said Martin Pert and Lee Grant. I think that's a really good shout, because I think that McKenna's deservedly getting most of the plaudits, and he's been fantastic. But I'm sure he'd be the first to say he's supported by a great team as well. So just want to kind of give a nod to the backroom team as well that have been identified to support Kieran McKenna and are clearly doing a great job on the training pitch as well. But for me, I'm going to go for Christian Walton. The reason why, and actually I had thought of JD for the reasons that Vicky said. I think that's a really good shout as well. And we've almost just kind of come to expect now that level of performance from JD. But Christian Walton, I think his distribution has improved massively this season. Always been really commanding in his area, coming to claim crosses, something that we haven't always had that benefit from other goalkeepers, as good as other goalkeepers have been that have played for us. I think he's one of the most commanding goalkeepers we've had. But it is that distribution. He's starting attacks quickly. And I know kind of we've talked about playing shorter passes, keeping the ball at the back. But there have been times when Walton's really got us up the pitch with not just a kick downfield, but an accurate, clear, clever kick that's got other teams on the back foot. I did feel at times, particularly when Kieran McKenna first came in, sort of January to March last year, that he'd hold on to the ball, and it was almost he was nervous at, getting it down and playing quickly and playing with his feet. But you can't say that now. And I know a lot of people talk about Cooper at Plymouth and is it Bergstorm at Peterborough. I mean, I've seen tweets from League One accounts saying rate the best goalkeeper in League One, and they've given you 4 options, and Christian Walton's not even on the list. It's mad. I saw one, I couldn't believe it. But, as well as we are doing this season, I think it's easy to underestimate just the calming presence that he offers at the back. And I can't really think of too many goals that we've conceded that he's been at fault, if any. And just a nod to Christian Walton. And if he'd scored against Plymouth the other week, I'm sure he'd be even further up on people's thoughts for that recognition.
You can be sure of that. Yeah. So Ben Moore said, for the man with all the connections, he's helped McKenna with little tactical tweets and man management. Lee Grant is more of a player's coach, and what I mean by that, he understands what the players have gone through. He can also help take some of the load off. You weren't alone in saying Christian Walton. Maxie said Walton. His own fault, though, makes it look easy. A shout out from Fridge from Problem Child. Walton, Lord George, obviously he knows his goalkeepers as Jordan Hoggle. No words needed. We've got Mike D in the chat talking about the Fridge. Fridge harshly criticised since the start of the season. He's arguably our best defender. Will step up to a championship, no problem. Callie, Joe Pickett doesn't get enough love. Got Pompey into a full sense of optimism, only to help them flop. That's a great one. That is a good shout. Stephen Parry, how you doing?
Little Agent Joe, though. You can't beat that, can you?
It's not where I thought it was going. Who's underrated in this team? Who's not getting enough love from you? Or for
I put mine in. It has to be Tenassi. At the end of the day, I understand what Lewis is saying, but virtually every single week it's someone's man of the match or player of the match, player of the month or whatever. Tenassi and Isley being featured. And I think the point is the fact that we're so used to his consistency and we're so used to what we get, we just expect it now. So it's like, yep, that's him. He's done his job. Bye-bye. And when somebody else like Edward stands out or Walton has a good save, it's always mentioned. But the simple things that he does, it's never mentioned because we expect him to do it. And I think that's why I think he doesn't get the plaudits. But there's always teams where you have players like that. It's you look through every team, there's always a few players who don't get the recognition they deserve. We did with Scouse when we had him. He didn't get the recognition he deserved. But that was who I worked for anyway.
Do you think Gnassian could do it if we get into the Championship as a starter, as in nailed on like he is at the moment in the Championship?
I don't know. I'll be honest. I'll give him a go, but I don't know. He's earned to go. He's earned a chance. Yeah. Whether he could do it or not, I don't know. I'd love to hope he could, but we'd have to wait and see. That's a hard one to answer.
The great thing about Gnassian is he constantly proves everyone wrong, doesn't he?
Exactly. So, anybody who turns around there and says that he can do it, they don't know. He's never done it. I could argue, you can argue like Walton and people like that. They've been there, they've done it. So you can say they can do it. People say he wasn't very good at Blackburn. Nearly conceded 47 goals at Blackburn in the season. That's one a game. in a pretty poor Blackburn side. So that isn't bad for a championship.
I
Mike
think
D,
this
feed
time
this back-
last.
sorry, Vicky.
Sorry.
Feed this back to his Mexico 86 audio comms. Get a TC headset on the list for beep.
I've got my new computer on order, so it's going to be sound then.
Love it, Vicky. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that, you know, a year ago, 18 months ago, Dynastian was out the door, wasn't he? He was rubbish, and he's grown a lot, and he's got a real sort of sensible head on his shoulders, and he commands his area, and I think he probably could do it in the championship, but we'll never know. We'll never know until next season.
I did want to raise a point. I did want to raise a point about what Vicky was saying before about the sideways passing. It is frustrating, but that's the way we play. But don't we do both? We do the sideways pass and then we do the long ball. But it's not usually a normal long ball. It's usually like Edward switching it out from left to right. So it's still the long ball. They're just looking for the best place. He's passed it across the back till they get to the best place where they think the long ball's on, whether it's Burns on one side or Davis on the other. And then the long ball comes. And they're all out of position because they don't know where they're going. And I think that's where we've been getting more success. So it's not the traditional straight long ball down the field, but it's like a switched ball to the right or the left to get someone into some space, and then they're out of position. And I think, so we do play the long ball, but it's a mix. I think it's more like a hybrid where they do both. They move it around and then whack a long ball in, and that captures them on the off.
I'm going into dangerous territory because it's something I know very little about, and I could easily get schooled by Martin and quite a few people in the chat. But it's almost a sense of American football in that everyone's working for position. You know, we're moving teams around to try and find that space and that opening for the quarterback, Lee Evans, to play the pass. I completely agree. I mean, I don't know if you'd agree with that as an analogy, Gov, but it is very much keeping teams moving, kind of shifting it, keeping the ball close, and then looking to find the space to exploit in behind.
Yeah, very much so. It's about stressing in American football terms. It's about stressing a defense. It's about you will try and place as much stress on the defense in whatever way you think they can't handle it. So selection probably has been more like that in terms of American football, where you go to Wednesday, Hillsborough, and you make big decisions because you realise their back three can't deal with pace. It's the same way you would do in American football, where you realise their cornerbacks can't deal with pace over the top or aren't physical enough at the point of the catch. So yeah, very much so, Lewis. Very good analogy, I would say. Yeah.
And also, you can clearly see, especially in the last two games, both teams were physically buggered after about 70 minutes.
For sure.
I think that's the reason why we won against the second half. They'd run out of steam. They'd run out of puff. They put everything in that first half, and they had nothing in the second half. Because we were a different team or they were a different team, one of the two. Because it was chalk and cheese.
You were there, Steve. So
I was.
who was really dictating the stuff for Town? You know, obviously Lee Evans always gets the plaudits. Who else really sort of, you know?
I think it was very difficult in the first half because they pressed us. They did press us well, and there wasn't much space, so we couldn't get that switcher ball in, or we couldn't get that sort of like longer ball.
Sure.
Throughout the game, Morsey played well. You know, he made a couple of driving runs which got us going. Edwards played well. But, you know, I can't fault him on that left-hand side. When they switched him to the left, he looked a lot better. He looked more comfortable, you know, and he played well. I think Arna's played well when he come on. I think Chaplin didn't play well, but I don't think it was his game. You know, there wasn't much space to work with, and he had like 2 or 3 players on him every 5 minutes. You know, so that opened up space for me, maybe Edwards on the left-hand side, because they're all gravitating towards Chaplin because he's the danger man. You know, we did that with Bannon and we did that with Pack. You put more men on them, but it leaves space elsewhere. You know, so they're out of the game, but someone else pops up from somewhere else because you've got 2 men marking one. So it can happen that way. But I think out of all of them, I thought Keogh played well. Edmondson played well, but if I had to give a man of the match, I'd have to give it to probably Morsey, because it needed someone to drag everybody through.
Ooh.
And he did that.
Here's a question.
I think Keogh did a lot of that, because every time something happened, he was shouting, he was jeering people up, he was getting people going, and you could literally hear it, you know. And when we scored that goal, he was coming down pitch, waving his arms. He was up for it, and I think like that, he brought everybody else up for it as well.
But was he waving his arms differently to how Calibers was after the goal Tuesday night against Cambridge?
Yeah. I don't know. Bit like
It
that,
wasn't
you know?
quite the dance. He wasn't trying the dance moves out himself.
No,
Steve, here's a
no,
question
yeah.
for you. You mentioned Sam Morsey. Would you have Sam Morsey or would you have Barry Bannon? If I could give you one in your team tomorrow, who would you have, Steve?
To be fair, I'd probably have Morsey because he's got that grit to him. Bannon's not. Bannon's not got that grit. He's a fantastically skillful player and he does not deserve to be in League One. Yeah, but neither does Sam Morsey. But Morsey's got that little edge about him that you need in this league. You know, Barry Bannon can go missing. There's games where he's anonymous, and when he's anonymous, Sheffield Wednesday don't do very well. Morsey's always trying to make himself there. He's always trying to be part of it, you know, and I like that. I like in virtually every game, he's always trying to do something. Yeah, sometimes he does it badly, sometimes he does it, but he's always trying to do something. And sometimes Bannon can be a bit like Celine, where he can like wander off and disappear, you know.
Yeah.
And then you have a bad game. So he's
There's
more
a name I thought we'd left in the past. There's a name I thought I'd never hear again.
To be fair, I think he's more consistent, but he's not as skillful as Bannon. And I'd rather the consistency.
Okay, Stephen, we appreciate you. Look after yourself,
Even
Lewis.
my 1980s tech.
Sort it out. We love you, man. Look after yourself, Lewis. You were going to speak. Sorry, man.
Stephen made a really good point about
He always does.
Chaplin Saturday, and yes, he didn't have he wasn't really influential on the ball, and he didn't have a massive impact on Saturday, but they had two players on him every time, and I think it's a good opportunity to reflect on Wes Burns this season, because Wes Burns, whilst not as necessarily being as influential in terms of goals and assists as last season, is still playing a massive part. And I don't think we should underestimate the fact. Take Cambridge the other day. They had two, sometimes three players out on that right-hand side, specifically to stop and limit space for him to run into. So if he knocked the ball past one, there'd be someone sweeping up behind. Now, what that enabled kind of us to do was to soften up that side so that when Edwards came on for Burns after an hour, I think there was more space available for Edwards. And the same with Chaplin in the middle. You know, if Chaplin's marked out the game, there is going to be space in other areas of the pitch. So the easy thing to do is to watch a game of football, watch us play and go, he didn't play well, he didn't play well. But actually, there's going to be certain games where people may not notice the contribution others have made, because it's a little bit like, I know police officers will often say, I can't tell you how many crimes I've prevented just by walking down the street, because you never know. Someone could be about to commit a crime, look round, see a police officer and think twice. And it's that whole thing of, we can't necessarily tangibly say, Wes Burns did this, this and this, but it's kind of what the other team are doing to stop him. And I think Wes Burns has been fine. I actually think he's been getting better and better and better. But I have seen people say maybe he should come out of the team. Edwards has done really well, which he has done, but don't underestimate the impact of players like Chaplin and Burns, even if we can't necessarily see it in terms of contribution for goals and assists.
Bobby's walking the beat. Whatever. Vicky, Morsey,
Yes.
Alex Wilson says, tactical rest for Morsey on Saturday rather than risking him getting a yellow card and missing the derby game? What do you do? It's Lincoln at home on Saturday. Do you look beyond the opponents? I mean, you should always never do, I guess. Or do you say, just go and play your game, Sam? If you get a yellow, you get a yellow. That's life.
The thing is, we've got people that can fill in for him, haven't we? We've got Ball, so he can come on instead. So if he gets a yellow, it's not as drastic as it was last season.
Yeah, I agree.
Last season, we were putting all our hopes and dreams and aspirations onto just a couple of players. And once they went out, whether it be for yellows or whether they were injured, then we struggled. Whereas we haven't got that this season. We've got such a strong bench and all these options to change the team around and field a side that's specifically for that other team. So for me, it's not really an issue. If he rests Morsey, fine. If not, we've got options.
Great point. Owen, in Leeds, you've got some solidarity on the show. Look, it's gone all Yorkshire for a moment. What do you
We
do?
need to be at the bottom of the screen, Martin, and have the Northerners.
There
at
we
the
go.
top.
That's
There we go.
better.
Yay!
There we
Feels
go.
a bit more natural now.
There we go.
How can you take as soon as you start saying, "Oh, we'll leave Morsey out for this match because then we'll definitely have him available for the next one. This will be an easy 3 points. We don't need to worry about it." As soon as you do that, you're shooting yourself in the foot. If maybe Teddy Bishop has one of those games where we're missing a Morsey to bully their midfield a bit, and we go behind. Maybe we only get a point, and that point costs us. I'd rather have, if available, pick your best players, pick your best team. Sam Morsey has to play week in, week out if he's available. So, and I think he's a lot less hot-headed than he seemed to be last season. So, yeah, the odd yellows come in, but I don't feel like there's as much of a risk with a red with him, which there were at times last year.
No, and something else I picked up in the chat is, and you always walk this line when you create content of it can be clipped and you're made to look stupid in May. But if the football club was to be promoted, do you know what, Donasian, the conversation we were just having a second ago, Mike says personally finds it disrespectful to a player that's been one of our best in recent years. He deserves a chance. If you're promoted, do you pick on sentiment, or do you say, look, we're at the championship level, we're gonna, what do you do if you're in charge? Is he going to be good enough, do you think?
Do you want us to struggle to stay up in the championship next season, or do you want us to push on as a team that is now very affluent and can buy the better players, can pull players in? We are a club that's on the up. We're a club that's getting big crowds globally, but we're being seen with the whole Ed Sheeran link and everything. So we can be, oh yeah, JD's doing a good job, and he is. He links up well with Burns especially, but we should be aiming higher. And if we go up, and again, touch wood, but with the squad we've got, the manager we've got, the way we're going, there's no reason we won't be top 2. I'm more than happy for a JD to be on the bench because he's very good cover to play however many games. But I think we should be aiming higher if we go up, which we will.
We would evolve, though, wouldn't we? If we go up, we buy players and strengthen the squad where we need it. And again, have those options to come off the bench if needed. So we would evolve. I think it's a question to field when we go up at the end of the season. Then we can look at.
I posed the question, though. I didn't pose the question because I don't think he can do it, by the way. It was simply a case of just asking, do you guys think that Donasian could do it in the championship? And then you get into the realms of, if we went up and we started saying, oh, JD, we can do better, you could easily turn into Forest in the Premier League. Do you stick with the players that got you there and show a bit of faith, or do you make 10, 15, 20 odd changes?
I disagree
and actually,
with
if you look at the squad as it is, JD is our starting right back. KVY, I think KVY had a good pre-season. I think he's a more than adequate backup to JD. But if we went up to the championship, you'd probably be looking to move KVY on. If he's not playing regularly in League One, then he's probably not going to do it for us, unfortunately, in the championship. So then you bring in a new right back, and JD would fight it out with the new right back, who might be a bit more experienced. And that's kind of how you evolve, isn't it? Rather than kind of bringing someone in and shipping JD out and keeping KVY as your backup, for example. It's boosting so that your starting players at the moment are then in competition to retain their place against, on paper, more established players for championship football. And if JD overcomes that battle, then he's upped his game, and we as a team have improved, if that makes sense, because we've probably got a more capable backup.
JD hasn't done anything wrong so far, whereas KVY certainly isn't the player that he used to be pre-injury. Yeah, he's okay to come on for 10, 15 minutes and sort of do a sub-impact role, and that's fine. But if we're talking championship level, I know I'd rather have JD than KVY, personally.
And that could apply across the whole of the pitch, couldn't it? We're talking about the right-back position, just an example, aren't we? But all across that pitch, there will be certain areas where we're looking to make improvements, because there are certain players who will have done really well for us because they would have got us promoted, but maybe aren't able to step up and go on that journey into the championship, which is quite similar to what George Burley did in the Premier League, wasn't it? There were players who did really, really well, who started to drift out of the team once we got to the Premier League and new players came in.
You're on mute, Gov.
Mute, Martin. Sorry, you're very passionate, but on mute.
I am. I'm very passionate. Very passionate. It's interesting what comes out of conversations such as, who's not getting enough love at the moment or coverage, and Donation gets mentioned, rightly so, and then that conversation evolves into what about longer term, and it's just fascinating to see and want to really pick out and track the progress. So not only the player himself from now to the end of the season, but equally as we go through the year into the summer. 1.5 on a left back. I don't think any player, is out of town's reach once in the Championship. But of course, we've got to get there first. Big win on Saturday. What's your perspective as we sit here now on it?
Couldn't really be much better, if we're being completely honest, from what we hoped at the start of the season. If we'd have been offered one defeat and just a few draws by this point, we'd have bitten their hand off. Well, most of us would. There might be one or two who would be disappointed we've lost one. But I think, you go into the next, we've got Lincoln at home. There's no reason why we can't beat a Lincoln who are sitting 16th, is it? Obviously, you don't want to write teams off. As you see with Morecambe, you get people getting carried away. So, we're going to put 5-6 past them. That generally isn't going to happen, especially not until the last few weeks of the season if a team's cut adrift and they've got nothing to play for. We are going to have some horrible games, but if we get the job done, who the hell cares? And Lincoln, they don't really scare me. It's not like a few years ago when they were a bit of they weren't too much fun in this league, and they certainly weren't fun in the FA Cup 5 years ago. I don't think it'll be like that. I hope not, anyway. But, we're a different breed now. We're a different animal. We're going the right way. Get past them. Again, Derby, at the start of the season, when they got their finances sorted out, in my head, I'm like, oh, yeah, they've got Hourahan, da-da-da-da-da. But who's the team with 30-plus points, second in the table? It's us. We don't really need to fear anyone. I think you mentioned, I don't know if it was you or Cruncher, Gov mentioned that the only team that's going to mess this up for us this season is ourselves. And we did that against Plymouth for about 15, 20 minutes where we just stopped playing and we let them take control. If we can get it right up here, and I do think the likes of Richard Keogh are very good for that, because the way he led the players, the way he just sort of, I know people didn't like him, but Luke Chambers were a great captain, a great leader, and I feel like Morsey's good at doing it on the pitch. He might not agree with it. He wasn't a great player, but he was a good leader and he did a lot of good for the young lads in the club. And I think we need a few more smart heads who can just deal with the shit that the players are going to go through, because they are humans and they are going to have ups and downs. And I think people like that are handy to have to help McKenna as well, because McKenna, they're new to this in many ways. So
yeah,
I think it's interesting that Aluko still seems to have been in and around the squad despite being injured. So he's not been, take Saturdays off to concentrate on your rehab. I know he's been doing a bit of radio. I know he's been in the fan zone before the games. I bet he's in the dressing room, and I bet Richard Keogh, despite having not started a game before Saturday, I bet he was a big voice in the dressing room and on the training pitch. That's what we've lacked, is leaders with experience. And I didn't go to the game on Saturday. I watched it through other means when I was away, and I couldn't tell because it's TV coverage. But I messaged Colin afterwards, who was there, and he said that Keogh was organising all the time. He was a voice. He was there, and that's something for all Luke Wolfenden's qualities. Going to a tough place like Morecambe, everyone knows Luke Wolfenden's a great guy, but he's a really laid-back guy. He's not going to be barking instructions and orders. That's just not his game. That's not his character. So I do think, particularly as the season progresses, we're going to need that level of experience, just that calm head at times, because there will be players that have never been in a promotion race before. And it'll be interesting to see where we look to recruit in January as well. I could see potentially a more experienced hustle and bustle striker coming in who's kind of been there and done it before, just to help some of the younger players like TJJ and Jackson to a certain degree, maybe, just having that experience, help them on the training ground. And like you say, help Hurt and McKenna as well.
And for me, I think having players who've been there, done that, like your Morses and your Evans, when you think, a couple of years ago, everyone was raving about the fact that we had Flynn Downs, who's obviously gone on to bigger, better things, Dazelle, Bishop, got these great young lads. But as soon as there were any trouble, or as soon as it would go in a bit downhill, they'd go quiet, or Downs would flip out and do something daft. Whereas now, having likes of Evans, having the likes of Morsey, having the likes of Walton, players who've been promoted, players who've been in good teams which clearly had good character, like those Wigan promotions. As much as Paul Cook was a pretty terrible manager in the long run, he was a good guy, and you could tell he had that good atmosphere around most of the players. He shipped about half of them off to the under-23s, which weren't the brightest thing. But I just feel like it's going in the right way. And character, I've mentioned this a few weeks ago, whenever it was, character's key, and we've got it. We've got good people in and around the club, owning the club, got a great set of fans. Who's going to stop us? Nobody.
The passion oozes out of the team, doesn't it? That's the thing. You can see it. You can see him working for it, and it's really nice to see. And there are going to be matches that we lose, but we need to not lose our heads. We need to stay calm, and we just need to regroup and go on to the next one, because we're not going to go all season without a loss. And it'll probably be, the likes of a Morecambe or a Fleetwood Town that do beat us. But that's okay. It's all right, as long as we come back afterwards and make a difference. And that's what we've been doing since Plymouth. We lost, but then we regrouped, we came back, and we've lost, and we've won 3 on the bounce. So
but it's not just the players that got to keep their heads. We've got to keep our heads as well.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We, as in a fan base, we have to keep calm and not overreact just because we have 1 or 2 losses, because we're going to do that. And I know we're passionate, and I know we want to win everyone, but we're not going to.
No. A couple of years ago, we lost at Accrington when Toppen in a similar position, and the wheels came off quite quickly. Whereas we had a setback, an unlucky defeat at Plymouth. Okay, I say unlucky. They probably shaded it second half, didn't they? There was only going to be 1 winner after they equalised. But the manner in which we've bounced back, not one person here in the chat on the terraces could ask for any more than 3 wins in a week. And we did that. And we had to do it in the face of difficulty at times as well.
Yeah, and I would say, I think people are a lot more accepting of defeats, this manner of defeats, and its calibre of defeats. So if we'd not won Saturday, for example, you can take that once every so often. It happens. You don't want it to happen, but you can rebound from it. The Plymouth defeat at the point of of time that it was in was we've not beaten the top 6 side. We've not done it against the bigger sides. We can beat up on the Morecambes, the Fleetwoods, the blah blah blahs. We're struggling here against that's two tests, two not tests passed, if you like, for clumsy words. But having gone through and beaten Portsmouth the way we did, Cambridge the way we did, I think a lot more patience will now be, because you've got those experiences to fall back on. And, I always look at life as a folder, and you make an experience in life and you put it in a folder. Where our experiences of Ipswich Town and our folder were nothing but negative. We can't beat top sides. This is it. This is the wobble. This is the moment. Whereas, the more positive experiences, the more moments against Portsmouth and co that you can put into that folder, then hey, you can draw upon it and go, we've been here before. It's okay. Be steady. It's good to go. Owen, it's been appreciated talking to you. I look forward to hearing from you again soon. Always nice when we have not only one person from Yorkshire, but we empty it and have 2. You look after yourself. All right.
You too, guys.
Good man. We've got Matt Stannard and Saj looking forward to Talking Town pajamas, dressing gown and slippers. They're all going on the Christmas list. We can get the pajamas, although it's not technically a pajama top. It didn't start out that way, but it certainly can be used however you want to be used. The TT coffee mug with no handle in honour of the Gov, says Mike D. Coffee just hits right. Hits different in a mug with no handles. And Facebook user, or I think he's Ben Adams, says, I'm releasing a TT book on football car analogies only on Amazon. The Baby Fund.
I'll buy it.
Well, I think we all would buy it. It's a fantastic work. Norman, did you see the EADT has reported McKenna has been in charge of 36 games and has got 71 points? That's promotion form. Craig, personally, thousands of all the players to leave in the last few years is the one I'd love in this side now. I'm going to bring in the fisherman in a second because we can't have a Genoid Donatian conversation without the authoritative voice. Not Callie in this instance, it's going to be Mike. So before I bring him in, any final thoughts from either of yourselves before we bring Mike in and end the show in a second? Vicky?
On what?
On anything you've heard, thought of, Ipswich Town, football, anything you want. Final word.
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered everything.
Love it. Lewis?
Only thing from me, Rich touched on it yesterday, really fitting tribute to the passing of John Duncan, and just personally want to give my condolences to his family. He was slightly before my time. My first season following Ipswich was under John Lyle. So, but it made me look back on some of the teams and the players that John Duncan had, and the players that I enjoyed growing up watching when I first got into football, kind of like my heroes, people like, Frank Yallop, Craig Forrest, those players, Jason Dazelle, who went on to do great things. And from hearing other tributes to him, it sounds as though he kind of laid the foundations in difficult times, a little bit like Joe Royal did for us, and never possibly got the recognition that he deserved during difficult times. So, as I say, I know Rich really hit the nail on the head with his tribute yesterday, but whilst sort of never actually watching one of his teams, I recognise what a big impact he had on Ipswich Town Football Club.
Well said.
Well said.
Really well said. We've got Neil, Eddie Jones, Wilmore, smells like promotion. Momentum says, Gino, we have to keep it going. So we spoke about Genoid Donatian. Sentiment, would you, wouldn't you? Lee Anderson says, why are we talking about the championship? Well, we had moved off it, but the fisherman is here. Fisherman, you've heard the comments in the chat. You've heard the comments in the show. You are Genoid Donatian's #1 cheerleader. But don't let that stop us from having a debate.
I weren't going to come on tonight. I weren't. And I was just listening to it in the background while I was actually cleaning the cooker. And then I heard this Genoid Donatian, and I read some comments in the post. Now, I love Colin, right? I really do. But I felt he's been totally disrespectful towards Donatian tonight in the chat. And so has a few others. Look, this player has got 3 assists just this year alone. How many did he get last year? 5?
Mm-hmm.
You know, people say he can't play in the championship. That's a load of bollocks. I'm sorry, but it is. Absolute load of bollocks. You don't know that. No one knows that. No one knows whether he can play in the championship or not. How many players are like?
What makes you think he can?
I remember players like Titus Bramble being said by fans, he'll never play in the Premier League. He won't be good enough. Richard Wright,
He wasn't.
We need a new keeper.
He was
He won't be
shit.
good enough. Sorry?
It was shit. It was shit.
Who was?
Titus Brambles.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But I agree with you, Mike. I agree with you on JT. Nobody knows how he'll play in the championship. Nobody knows how any of them will play in the championship. Got to get there first, of course.
You have.
But we don't know.
Absolutely. And to disrespect a player that's really given 100%, probably nearly every game. And I know, okay, so he hasn't been sort of the 7 in the last couple of games. He's dropped a little bit in the last couple of games. I get that. But to turn around and disrespect him when we're not even in the championship, we're still League One. And people treating Kieran McKenna like he's won the FA Cup or won the UEFA Cup or, and played in Europe, played in the Premier League. He's done nothing at this club yet. And I say yet, because I believe he will. But right now, we've got to keep our feet on the ground. Yeah, I know. See, that's quality. That is so good. I love it. Kev, you've done a good job there, mate. But in all fairness, like I said, brilliant. Oh, I love it.
If you're listening on audio, get yourself to YouTube just for the last 30 seconds of the show.
Oh, yeah. But you see what I'm saying?
I do.
So, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, Donatian deserves more respect than what he's got. You know?
Do you think
Josh,
Caden
you
Jackson
talk out your
could play
bum,
in
mate.
Championship?
You really are. You're talking
Don't go
right
there.
out your
Don't go
arse.
there. Not at this time of night. Don't go there.
Honestly,
Don't go there.
really. Honestly, he never got the chance under Shambert. Do you know what I mean? He never really played. Look where he's playing now. I always said he was a right-sided central defender anyway. You know, I never felt he was a right back, and he's proven time and time again. Look at Martin Shambert's love child with headphones. But look, I can't speak German. I am proper rattled, and I am upset that fans are disrespecting one of our players who's playing for the shirt right now and giving it everything, giving it more than some of the players, shall we say, even in this game. Do you know what I mean?
I agree with what you say about Janoy Donassian, but if you take Caden Jackson, he wears the shirt. He's doing his best.
Last word. I don't want to go in that fucking debate.
No. I'm not trying to rile you, but you're talking about JD, and I don't disagree on what you're saying. But there are other players who you don't rate. Who, if you ask a question about
Caden Jackson's record for this club isn't hardly like worth setting the world alight, is it? You know, with respect, he has 2 good games. Everybody thinks he's the next Messi. You know. Do you know what I mean? Look, he's had a couple of good games, and what did he do at the weekend? It was head to chicken mode again. You know, I'm sorry, but you've got to be realistic where these players are concerned.
But you can't come on and say.
Yeah, I can.
It's disrespectful to say that Janoy Donassian can't do it in the Championship because we haven't seen him, and yet and we should support him because he's a player of Ipswich Town. And then other players who haven't necessarily had the opportunity to play in the Championship, you're saying the same. I am playing devil's advocate because I'm not saying I think Caden Jackson could do it in the Championship. I'm not saying.
Caden Jackson's proven he can't do it in the Championship. Proven. He's played out many times in that where he's had opportunities to really play.
He played about half a season under Paul Hurst.
He hasn't. That's the bottom line. And, you know, but Janoy Donassian wasn't given the proper chance. He was sent out of Fleetwood where he was man of the match for probably the first 6 games.
Where he found himself, Mike.
But it doesn't matter, Martin. He still played at that. He still played and was shining above others. You can't. No, I'm sorry, but I'm not.
I don't think we can slate any of our players right now. We're sitting second in the league.
That's the point I'm trying to make. We can't defend certain players and then take social media or whatever and say so-and-so's rubbish, so-and-so's useless. We're supporters of Ipswich Town, which means we should get behind all of our players and support them. We might not necessarily rate them. And I'm not, this isn't aimed at you, Mike. This is more a general point. We should support the players as supporters, even if you don't necessarily believe that they are of the standard.
What do you think? Look, at the end of the day, is I do when I'm watching the game.
Last comment, Mike.
I am supporting the team, and when I'm at the ground, I'm supporting the team. I'll support whoever's on that pitch. But the reality is, for fans to turn around, you know, I'm slating Jackson for his performance in League One, for some of his performances in League One. Yeah, which there's fans disrespecting a player that's given us probably a 7+ near enough every game, including last season, right? And saying sorry, he's not good enough for the Championship. No one knows that, and giving Kieran McKenna a knighthood before he's actually achieved anything. Okay. Right now, I just want to get us out of this league. Right now, I want to play in the Championship. Once we get there, then we can talk more about whether these players can perform or not. But right now, we're still in League One. We're still in League One, and until the end of May, we won't know where we are.
We'll be promoted in March. We'll be up in March. Don't worry.
Perfect way to end it, Mike. Love you. Appreciate you. As always, good comments in there. As always, head to social media to see more wonderful pictures of Mike as Mike Bassett. I've got no doubt. Lewis, good comments in there yourself as well. Love the Devil's Advocate. Just good comments all around tonight. Really, really interesting show. What more could you say? Norman says, I rate Jackson. I think he's got a great attitude and wants to improve. Absolutely. There you go. So there we go. So get me your funny Mondays in, or your things that you've seen across the internet that have made you smile, laugh throughout the course of the week, and I'll try and show a couple on each Monday night. Go on, Lewis.
I've got one that I saw this morning. I don't know what game it was from yesterday. Why was there a Sunday night Premier League game? It was like, it felt like Boxing Day. It was like game at 1, game at plus the Grand Prix as well. I literally had to sneak away to flick the telly on to check scores throughout yesterday. But have you seen online the supporter at one of the games trying to get a selfie with Roy Keane? And he's trying to watch the game and basically tells him to do one. It's quite amusing. If people are looking for literally a 10-second chuckle, it might be worth looking up.
I will have to look that up. We might be able to feature it next week, but get them in social media. Send them to me on social media or the Talking Town account, homedressingroom89gmail.com, the website. We'll start on Wednesday's show, I think, midweek show with absolute sort of strange, complexing moments. Just as an example, the wife said before the show she was off to walk the dog. This is not a joke, by the way. She's off to walk the dog. I've just had a message saying I've just seen Jupiter through a telescope. She was only walking the dog.
What, from the wife?
Yeah. She was going to walk the dog. I've just had a WhatsApp to come through. Just said, I've just seen Jupiter through a telescope.
But can she do it in the Championship?
She's only walking the dog, Lewis. How far she walked, the poor thing? That's what I want to know. Like, where she going to see that? There we go. Strange. I'm off to investigate what's going on in my own household. But until Wednesday, 8:30 with Ben Adams and one other. That one other is to be confirmed. He is the rap star Lewis Robertson. That is No Filter Yorkshire V. Matt says, most dogs find sticks. Yours found a telescope. And on that note, good night.
You make me smile when I think of you. If I get down low and I am blue, I can't get enough. You make me happy, I feel so fine. Oh, how I wish that you were mine. I can't get enough. I woke up all soaked in sweat, weird chills running down my neck. I thought went crazy from just the thought of you. A long